Hi, I'm pretty sure that you, just like I, had to face sometimes a very high contrast situations. Maybe in the best moment, you have to take the picture of a dark subject with a bright background or a bright subject with a dark background. That is not easy, and in this short video, I will try to show you what you can do to improve this image for a high contrast situations. Stay with me. So, here we are more comfortable. Nice to see you again and welcome back to another video. I'm Mario Kilian. In the last pictures I show you, I was faced to a very high contrast situations. And to fight these situations and get the best exposures, there are three main factors that plays a role in this situation. The first one is the dynamic range. The dynamic range is something we can't change. It's one of the characteristics of our camera, and in simple words is how effective our sensor or film is to get the details from the highlights without blowing out, and the details of the dark zones of the pictures without turning into pure black. But that is something we can change. It is inside our camera and is built with our camera. And this dynamic range is measured mainly in light stops, and it is about 8 stops of light. Something important I almost forgot is that to squeeze the best out of the dynamic range of the sensor or film, you have to try to keep the ISO as low as possible. And that's because when you start to raise the ISO, the dynamic range will decrease drastically. So try always to keep an ISO under 1000. I know it's a challenge, especially when you're taking high contrast pictures. But to squeeze the best out of the dynamic range of your camera, always try to keep the ISO under 1000. The second weapon, if I can say it so, that we have to fight against this high contrast situation image is the exposure compensation. Every time we see a kind of this high contrast image, I can change the exposure, and in this way to improve the exposure just of the subject I'm trying to take the picture. Of course, it is highly probable that I have to sacrifice the background in the way I blow out the highlights of the background, or that maybe the background will get too dark. But the main situation of the object in the center, I should get it correctly exposed. The third thing we can do is to change the metering mode. What is the metering in our camera? The metering is the light sensor our camera has to evaluate all the reflecting light the image gets to the sensor, and in this way to get the perfect exposure to compensate all the lights, the highlights and the darks, and so get the best exposure. The metering modes are mainly three different metering modes. In some cameras there are four too. The first one is the matrix metering mode. In the matrix metering mode, the camera evaluates the whole light of the whole image and tries in this way to get the best exposures, maybe taking in sacrifice the darkest part or the highlights in the image. The metering mode, we can change it to a center evaluated or a center weighted metering mode. In this case, our camera or the light sensor of the camera evaluates the light of the center of the image to get the best exposure, letting out all the sides or the borders from the image and only focusing in the center of the image. In this case, we can improve the details of the object we're taking the pictures, but sacrificing, of course, a little bit of the outside of the image. And the third metering mode is the spot metering mode. In this case, the camera evaluates the light only from one center point or one point in the whole image. I can change this point, and it's mainly associated with the focus point. It's a little bit bigger than the focus point, but if you choose to focus or put the metering into over the object, in this case you can expose correctly the object. Of course, if the object is dark and the background is very bright, then you have to sacrifice the background and the background will mainly blow out. In the case the object we are taking the pictures using the spot metering mode and the object is too bright, it is mainly probable that all the background will be underexposed. But that is a decision you have to take. Mainly the decision is, I want a correct exposed object and sacrifice the background, or I want to get the best relation or the best equation between the object and the background. In photography, the metering mode that is most used is, of course, the matrix metering mode, mainly in landscapes. In landscapes, if we have a sky that is too bright, we can use special filters or graduated neutral density filters so that we can get a whole correct exposure of the whole image without blowing out the sky. But in the bird photography, especially in flying birds, it is not easy and it's very hard to try to get the correct exposure because the light sensor will evaluate the whole image. And if the bird is just a part of the image, it is mainly probable that the bird will be absolutely dark. In this case, we have to use the spot metering mode, but sacrificing all the background. So the situation is relatively simple and you have to try it. It's not a statement. It's mainly of a try and error. You have to think, in this bird that's flying here, I want the best equation between the background and the bird. In this case, I have to use a metering mode like a center weighted or the matrix mode and change the exposure a little bit, going up or down. It depends on the situation of a dark or a clear background. If I want to sacrifice and I don't care about the background, but I want the bird perfect with all the details, I have to use the metering mode, the spot metering mode. In this case, the camera will evaluate the light only of the bird, only of this point I'm focusing. And in this way, get the correct exposure. But of course, all the background will be underexposed or overexposed. But my object will perfectly be exposed. So it's a choose you have to do, and you have to know your camera. The best way is to go out and take as much pictures you can using each of these different metering modes. So this video was in answer to Adam, who asked me about a picture about a bird with a very clear sky in the background. Adam, I hope this video helps you to get a perfect picture the next time. If you have a question, let it me know in the comments and I will try to answer it too for you. So, I hope this video was helpful. If you find it interesting, maybe you consider to subscribe and give it a like, so others can see this video too. Now, go out and take your best pictures. I know you can. And see you next weekend. Bye bye.
I strive just to say I'm alright. And for the first time in a long time, I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change.